Gentlemen,
Sir.
good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, sir.
Gentlemen's.
Gentlemen's, we're in the daylight. So Travis just got us down the road here. So, typically what we're trying to do on the podcast here is kind of talk about national things that you don't hear at the local level and kind of how they can trickle into everyday life. And Travis, what you just lead us into what you were just talking about. You're asking about.
Well, I just said I saw a few headlines today about. Well, the way I said it before was Trump kind of trying to circumvent the final pardons that the previous president signed in, but
he had a big post on X that basically said he signed all of those. All of those were signed with the auto pen, and therefore they're null and void.
So the auto pen. I mean, do you know much about? I don't know much about.
Yeah, auto pen is basically, it's not like a stamp, like some attorneys or some public officials, they'll have a stamp.
Where literally rubber stamp it?
Yeah, that's rubber stamp, but it's approved rubber stamp. But, if he was not mentally fit to stand trial, he's not mentally fit to run for presidency again, which is why they removed him. Mm-hmm. The question might be, why is he mentally fit to say who should be pardoned or not?
Yeah.
Right. And if he didn't know, like if he wasn't mentally the one that said these people need to be pardoned, Fauci is somebody we talk about all the time.
That's the big one for me.
Well, there's a lot of them, but Fauci is definitely a big one.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's interesting to see what the legal argument will be. He didn't sign it. It's auto-signed.
Right.
Yeah.
So can he say, oh, yeah, I approved it. I wanted to pardon all these people. I mean, can you say that?
Where's the ice cream? That's what he
I need a nap. So left, right, or indifferent, whoever's in power needs to be actually signing documents.
Yeah.
The big conversation, I think that...
Really signing documents, not auto-sign.
Yeah, the big thing you don't hear at the local level on these types of stories. And, I have conversations with people that run stations in the area, and they're like, well, people locally don't care about that. I'm like, how can you not care if your president of the United States is physically able to do the job, and or if he's not the one that's signing things? I mean, how do you not care about that?
Well,
I don't understand.
Every one of the executive things that Trump has put out, they show him holding the thing up.
Yeah.
He signs it. He holds the thing up.
The big pen and
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, so like him or hate him, at least he's the one that's signing it.
Sure.
And if it's an auto pen, I mean, was Biden eating ice cream on the beach somewhere and someone was signing stuff on his behalf?
Someone was
Maybe it was
changing his depends.
like, Biden actually signed it or what?
Biden. Yeah. Anyway, so this is a call though. I mean, I know that there's local media that watch the podcast or paying attention to it. They watch clips maybe. And, my plea is to make it to where I don't have to talk about local stuff. And I enjoy local. City of Evansville is important to me. The city where we live, the area, the tri-state area, the counties surrounding us, it's all important to me. And it's like whenever they say like, well, the things that they talk about are not important or people around here don't care. And I'm like, that's not true. They're talking about the Department of Education being potentially shut down. And I know a lot of people that are saying things about it, virtue signaling about whether it's good or bad. I got people driving Teslas around with anti-Elon stickers on the back of them.
Swastika stickers.
And I'm like, who's giving him these narratives? I mean, it's like Elon is, just a few days ago had sent a rocket to rescue astronauts and bringing them back to safety.
Yep.
Nobody locally cares about that. I mean, whenever was it Columbia that blew up? Whenever,
it was Columbia.
I mean, we were in school and they put on the television and showed us the launch, and we watched it. We watched it explode, and that was important. Like that was something we were all rallying around. What are our kids rallying around now? If you can't rally around sending a rocket to outer space to rescue people in a very short window of time, that's significant.
Yeah.
Did you see on that that Rogan podcast where Elon's talking about that he could have gone up to get him much quicker, but the other side was making it a political
They were
play.
playing politics with it. Like, what does that mean?
I don't know. I just remember seeing that. So that's
Elon said it, and no one is surprised by it. But how can you play politics with an astronaut in space?
A couple of them.
Yeah, they've been up there for what, 9 months?
Yeah,
it was supposed to be. What was it supposed to be? It was supposed to be like 7 days. Ended up being 70 days, or I don't remember what it was, but it was substantially longer.
So part of this episode to me is going to be a plea to my friends on the left, and I have a lot of friends on the left, and a lot of them have gotten really quiet, which means to me they're not necessarily anti-Trump people. They might not agree with a lot of the things that he says or does, but they were ready for Biden to be gone.
Yeah.
But why can't we just unite around things that we can all agree on? I try not to get into the 80-20 arguments. Like, I don't want to get into the fringe things, and we don't talk about trans stuff a lot. We have before.
Yeah.
But that's you're talking about it from a medical perspective and whatever, and I just don't like that it all got politicized.
Yeah.
And I think the backlash of it is the left made trans and men and women's sports like kind of one of their headliner issues.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a no-win. It's an 80-20 argument. Like you're trying to argue for the 1% or less than 1% of trans people. I don't know what the number percentage.
It's around
3.
1. It's up to 3 now.
Yeah.
Oh.
But that means 97% of people aren't trans. And if you have a female daughter in sports and they're going against someone that's been a man their entire life until they decided not to be, or they started taking hormones or whatever, it's just not fair.
No, there's still an advantage there.
Well, there's a massive advantage.
I'll argue.
Well,
definitely.
we don't know that. I'm thinking of the swimmer. We don't know whether that guy was even taking trans shots or anything.
Well, he had a bulge.
Don't they test for a certain amount of either estrogen or don't they test the hormone?
No.
Oh, they don't.
No. They'll test for testosterone.
Yeah,
Testosterone,
if you've
make sure you're not juicing.
yeah.
But they won't test for estrogen.
You just a second ago, I'm kind of switching the topic because I just don't want to forget where my head is right now. You were talking about how we kind of need to all rally and we all just the betterment of everybody. I had somebody today I had to argue with about can people complain so much about the DOGE when it's finding out how I'm gonna bring up the DOGE again. Sorry, but it just irritates the heck out of me that they complain that they complain of what he's doing and that he's in there finding this fraud. I mean, I feel like it's like if somebody says, I have proof right here that you're cheating on me it was on your phone, your text messages. And the argument is, why the hell did you go through my phone? You found the stuff. Do we not want to fix where all of our money's going?
Yeah. I've got a bunch of clips on that. And I want to tell everyone that I was wrong last week when I gave credit to Obama about DOGE. It actually started under Clinton Gore.
Oh.
The DOGE effort started
was that when it was the Department
of
Efficiency or no? Not Department. It was called.
So I gave Obama credit for the origination of it. Sure. He actually did carry it. I mean, it started in Clinton, and Obama tried to carry it on.
Yeah, but they didn't do.
But they just didn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't even know. I can't say that Obama didn't originally have the intent to do it. You don't know what happens when someone gets in office. We know how things get mixed up and corrupted. And
hush money and push money.
And
do you remember
about this?
Like right at the beginning, how hardcore Michelle was about eating healthier. Like she was talking about the food. I think it was about bread. I think it had something to do with had this whole thing, and it was almost like somebody took her in the back and said, "Shut up, lady! They're the ones that's putting the money in your husband's pocket." Because all of a sudden she just flipped to, well, now fitness, maybe exercise. Let's go outside for 10 minutes a day or whatever. But she flipped real hard. I don't know if you remember that, but she was hard up for like the first couple months about food, about eating healthier, and then all of a sudden it just switched to fitness, switched to exercise.
It's the same pattern that happens throughout. I mean, the same people that control politics and the money that we're all finding out now. Going back to the JFK story, that's why still I'm going to say JFK story is super important that it comes out, and I hope Trump told the truth yesterday. I think I got a clip potentially. Definitely have some DOGE clips, Travis, to circle right back around to what you said, but. Before we move into the first clip and we can talk about it, I want to plead to my friends on the left, my friends in the center, that we need to organize and unite on things that we can all agree with. And Maha was one of those things. I mean, if you look at Trump's administration, 4 of the 5 top people are Democrats or former Democrats.
Yeah.
And so these are people that most people would have aligned with 5 years ago before they aligned with Trump. Mm-hmm. So you have to ask yourself, are you not aligning them with him now because the media has told you not to?
Those same people were aligned with Elon, if you recall, before.
Exactly. Before Elon started DOGE and the media started telling them that you can't like Elon because he's stealing all your money and he's
He's selling your social security number. Selling your social security number to Russia, man.
So maybe we're preaching to the choir with our audience, and most of our audience, I think, knows probably that the media lies and or that, they're basically propaganda networks for the government, the uniparty. I mean, that's what we're trying to fight. We want to organize people, the populist movement that got behind Trump. Trump's only going to be here for a short window of time. When he's not on the scene, I'm going to breathe a sigh of relief in some ways, even though he is so divisive, though, that he's organized this whole movement that wouldn't have happened without him. No one can take that away from him. And so at very least, I hope he gets credit for two things: putting the final nail in the coffin of the media, which I think needs to finally just go away. He put the first nail in during the first 4 years of his administration, which is part of the reason why I started the podcast. And I think the second one's going in this admin. And anyway, so this is a plea to the left. Hopefully we can start talking to some people on the left and they'll agree to come in, because we need doctors that aren't politically aligned. I don't want to be do you want
to be an echo chamber?
And I mean, I'm not a Republican. I don't ever want to be considered a Republican, because as soon as we take our foot off the gas and we're like, well, Trump has reinvigorated the Republican Party, those same Republicans that caused all the problems are going to come. They're still there. Fester up again. Yeah. We have to keep going until we push all those people out and create a common sense party. Republicans need to be common sense.
Like one that might cheer for a kid who's fighting for cancer, who was, made a deputy Secret Service agent, wasn't it? Or was it a police officer? I don't know. Yeah, only one side. You can politicize some things as much as you want, but stuff like that just blows my mind.
I'm sorry, Trump signing the thing that doesn't allow boys and girls sports in front of the gal that was permanently damaged by the male in volleyball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, how do you not cheer for that? How is that not something that everyone should care about?
Well, that can be a little bit divisive if you're trans or whatever. But I mean, a kid fighting cancer.
If Obama would have said, this gal and many other people have been harmed both truly physically and or mentally because they're competing against men in sports and they're women, that goes against everything that women's rights has tried to fight for however many years.
Absolutely.
It's exact opposite. If Obama would have came on and said that, he would have had every woman right there behind him.
Woman, yes, but not trans woman.
Well, no, and this is nothing against trans people.
No, not at all.
It's I don't know any trans people personally. I don't think. Maybe I do. But I don't even consider that in anything, except for if I have a little girl and you have a little boy that's been a boy up until the time that they've transitioned into a girl. They're physically advantaged over and above my girl. So that's not fair.
I mean, there. I remember the girl, was it Connecticut or I can't remember, somewhere in the Northeast that lost a scholarship due to she was in a race. It was like a regional or a whatever. She lost the ability to try to get a scholarship to her college because she came in fourth place, but the winner, of course, was had a little extra drag in the pool.
Yeah, I know it's still going on in some states.
So, I mean, not only does it emotional thing, but I mean, there's financial impacts that are already happening due to it as well.
Well, I didn't mean to get dragged into the trans argument, but the thing about it is, for me, I didn't even do that on purpose. Yeah, you missed it.
Oh yeah, I know, it's all right. I'll just do it with my mouth.
Anyway, so I mean, the moral of the story was, let's unite around things and topics that we can all not necessarily agree on everything about, but agree that they're important enough that we should focus on them and not be distracted by the next thing that the media throws in on top of us just to, kind of change our attitude or distract us from the important stuff that we're trying to accomplish. Me and Doc and Travis, are trying to focus a lot on the stuff that the medical realm has gotten wrong over not just the last 5 years since COVID hit, but well beyond. I think we're coming to a lot of new conclusions, and Doc Roy has been enlightened along with me and Travis about many things. We're learning more and more every day about how to get more healthy, not just from food, but other things that we can do in life. Anyway, let's just wrap up this segment. And I want to start off by showing a clip of this. Might go to something that Dr. Roy. I don't know if Travis.
We've heard a lot about extremism recently.
Hang on a second. I didn't mean to go straight into that right away. I don't know if Travis will know who this is, but it's a a good clip we should all listen to. This guy, you guys can tell me if you know who it is once we watch it.
Seriously, though, we've heard a lot about extremism
It's John
recently.
Cleese.
A nastier, harsher atmosphere everywhere, more abuse and bother boy behavior, less friendliness and tolerance and respect for opponents. All right, but what we never hear about extremism is its advantages. Well, the biggest advantage of extremism is that it makes you feel good because it provides you with enemies. Let me explain. The great thing about having enemies is that you can pretend that all the badness in the whole world is in your enemies and all the goodness in the whole world is in you. Attractive, isn't it? So, if you have a lot of anger and resentment in you anyway, and you therefore enjoy abusing people, then you can pretend that you're only doing it because these enemies of yours are such very bad persons. And that if it wasn't for them, you'd actually be good-natured and courteous and rational all the time. So, if you want to feel good, become an extremist. Okay, now you have a choice. If you join the hard left, they'll give you their list of authorized enemies. Almost all kinds of authority, especially the police, the city, Americans, judges, multinational corporations, public schools, furriers, newspaper owners, fox hunters, generals, class traitors, and, of course, moderates. Oh, if you'd rather be an extremist on the hard right, no problem, fine, you still get a lovely list of enemies, only they're different ones. Noisy minority groups, unions, Russia, weirdos, demonstrators, welfare sponges, meddlesome clergy, peaceniks, the BBC, strikers, social workers, communists, and, of course, moderates. And upstart actors. Now, once you're armed with one of these super lists of enemies, you can be as nasty as you like and yet feel your behaviors morally justified. So you can strut around abusing people and telling them you could eat them for breakfast and still think of yourself as a champion of the truth, a fighter for the greater good, and not the rather sad paranoid schizoid that you really are.
Paranoid schizoid that you really are. Yeah, no, man. Always look on the bright side of life. Come on now.
Okay, so you know who John Cleese was?
Oh, I've seen Life of Brian, Meaning of Life.
Roy, are you familiar with Monty Python?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Very much so.
Well, so John Cleese was a fairly significantly well-known former liberal Democrat, and I think he, even though he hasn't kind of turned the corner like the Rogan, the people have more notoriety now than back then. Apparently, he's kind of bringing a lot of stuff to the forefront of how liberal Democratic Party has changed so much. And so I thought that clip was kind of a perfect segue to just how people on both sides, like we can, virtue signal and think that we're ahead of an argument or whatever. And for me, Unite the Divided, why this channel was important to me was bringing people from all sides together again to talk about important things. Let's talk about our kids and what's really good for the future of our country. What's really good for the health. Make America Healthy Again is not a Republican, Democrat, liberal, or conservative conversation. It's everyone should want to be healthier and want everyone else around us to be healthier.
Absolutely.
We're going to save money in healthcare. That's the goal of this whole thing, and live healthier, longer lives. Anyway, I don't know if you...
Talking about healthcare, I've got a little something else I saw just a few days ago. There was a woman. So there's a woman in Canada. She needed a knee replacement, and she waited and waited and waited to see this surgeon. Finally, she got in to see the surgeon, and they replaced her knee. But there was some necrotic tissue. There was some tissue in there that was dying because of how bad whatever in there was. Well, apparently they replaced the knee, but for some reason that surgeon doesn't close up the knee. Somebody else it closes up the knee for whatever reason. I can try to find this clip. This is legitimate. Somebody talking about this. She had to wait another 8 days to get a bed in a different hospital to see this other person. And by that time, it had gone necrotic, and they had to amputate her. Yeah, from the knee down.
Because in Canada, they couldn't align the different doctors.
There were so many beds.
The different things.
There were so many beds. There weren't any beds, and not enough doctors, and due to the way their medical system works and everything,
the bureaucracy.
Well, but she had to get amputated. That was an article not too long ago. I can try to find it to give to you to put in the notes. But anyway, you were just talking about So part of this transition for me, I think a lot of good friends and people in local media even that were,
you know, I don't want to say virtue signaling to everyone, but I mean, the whole vaccine push from the very beginning, not the very beginning, maybe everyone in the very beginning maybe thought, okay, the vaccine might be the way out. But as soon as the tide turned for some people, I'm not ringing my own bell or giving myself any extra credit here, but I was paying close attention to people everywhere and about what other people were saying right out of the gate, because something just didn't seem right. Like right when it hit and everything locked down everywhere, something seemed way off. And I told my neighbors, I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but the world has just changed, and I don't know if we'll ever get it back again. Something just told me that.
The death rate of COVID-19 was 0.1%.
Mm-hmm. But that's not what we were
You mean
told.
of actual COVID-19?
Actual COVID-19,
Okay.
0.1%. And yet everybody was acting like it was the bubonic plague and everybody was going to die.
Well, Dr. Roy, in their defense, our media pushed the Wuhan people in the streets dying, laying in the streets everywhere. We thought stuff was going to blow over here and people were just going to start falling over and dying. I mean, that's what we were sold.
Yeah.
So I can't really.
I agree with you.
I can't really get too mad at people for freaking out about it, because the media freaked them out about it.
Sure they did.
You know, and that's.
I had patients who would not leave their houses for any reason. They had everything delivered to them, and they sat there watching CNN 24/7 and going completely nuts. And I talked to one of them on a Zoom, and I said, Stop watching CNN and just go outside and walk and get some fresh air. But I'll die. No, you won't.
Oh, do you remember how bad all the public places that you could go to were trying to enforce the mask rules and everything?
Yeah.
People wearing snorkelers and masks and stuff just to try.
I got personal stories with my family that are insane.
I was walking from my car to a chicken store, basically.
KFC or something?
It was Zaxby's.
Oh.
And this woman screamed at me, "Why aren't you wearing a mask?" And I said, number one, I'm 10 yards away from you. Number two, I'm downwind from you.
Is that what that smell was? No, I'm just
And you were outdoors?
And you're outdoors.
I was outdoors.
And the 6 foot thing wasn't legit anyway. So
No, Fauci lied about that.
Yeah.
He lied about masks. He lied about that. But, you know, but to circle this and to continue putting a pin right in the point here with local media and local people is I have some very good friends that are involved in media, and they can't understand why I'm so bent on needing better local media. And part of it, this is just the point, there has been no acknowledgement of anything that's been said that was untrue or not on the up and up.
No.
So it's if you're parroting your parent company's narrative, and that was all, here's COVID, it's this thing, it definitely didn't come from a lab, it definitely is something that we don't know anything about, and you definitely need to take this vaccine, and there's nothing else you can do, and if you don't take the vaccine, you're a bad person. If they don't acknowledge that was wrong, like local people even.
Yeah.
If you don't acknowledge that's wrong, you'll never have my trust again.
That's right.
And so you have to learn the lesson. Whether you were quick, again, I give myself a little more credit because I saw it quick, but I still was wrong in the beginning. I'll acknowledge it now. I get wrong about a lot of things.
I was too. I thought that I was all for the vaccine until all of a sudden I realized that, it's not doing any good.
And you're the only doctor, I think, to this day that's, other than a couple retired ones that'll say it, no one will say that.
Yeah.
No one will say it. So no one is acknowledging. Local media is not on top of our medical organizations. They're not looking at national things that are coming down the pipeline with the new administration. They're not listening. They're calling RFK all these names, and they're going along with the national media and just calling him a bad guy that's trying to kill vaccines. And I'm like, you're missing it all again. You're completely missing the boat. You're never going to gain trust back. So this clip, to me, is kind of a refreshing look. Megyn Kelly, formerly of Fox, no longer on Fox. The guy she's talking to is a former Democrat, and this is a great clip and hopefully it's queued up properly. And Travis,
Unbelievably, the New York Times comes out with a piece dated yesterday, March 16th, by opinion columnist Zeynep Tufekci. We were badly misled about the event that changed our lives. We were badly misled. Somebody online changed it to, we badly misled you about the event that changed our lives. And that's a much more accurate headline from the New York Times. Glenn, this is so infuriating to me. The whole thing is about stuff you've known, your audience has known, me and mine too, and most people who have been independent thinkers, or certainly as part of right-wing media, people who listen to Rumble. We've known this for years, since 2021. But here they are, 2025, with an aha moment on the lab leak as the origin of COVID and how those in charge misled us. I'll just give you a couple of highlights from the piece and then let you take it. She starts by pointing out, in 2020, when people started speculating about a lab accident being the spark behind the pandemic, they were treated like kooks and cranks. By whom, again? Zeynep? Who is treating them like kooks and cranks? Could it have been the New York Times? Anyway, okay. Many public health officials and prominent scientists dismissed the idea as a conspiracy theory, insisting the virus had emerged from animals. And when EcoHealth Alliance lost a grant because it was doing this so-called gain-of-function research, no fewer than 77 Nobel laureates and 31 scientific societies lined up to defend the organization. So the Wuhan research was totally safe, and the pandemic was definitely caused by natural transition. It certainly seemed like consensus. We have since learned, however, that to promote the appearance of consensus, some officials and scientists hid or understated crucial facts, misled at least one reporter. She's speaking of Don McGahn, who worked for the New York Times, orchestrated campaigns of supposedly independent voices, and even compared notes about how to hide their communications. The reason she wants us to know that it was probably a lab leak and that we were so grossly misled is because people need convincing that the next pandemic is only an accident away. Basically, now that RFKJ is in charge of HHS and she's seeing like measles and other problems that she cares about. So she really, really wants us to trust our public health entities again.
I want to come back to this.
I don't trust anybody. Good God. I mean, I've lost total compassion for the media and for our own public health system.
Well, Doc Roy, let's go back to one of our earliest podcasts now, going a couple years back. And I came to you with an idea, what I thought was, I called it a truth-seeking apparatus, but it was basically something that could rate a team of people and say, these are the people the last time a pandemic hit that saw things early, that started questioning things. They, for whatever reason, their gut told them something, then they started looking at different signals, and then they were the first to come out and they got canceled. You look at Robert Malone's, Peter McCullough's, long list of people that, risked their licenses, they risked their careers, they risked their livelihood. Those are the people that you need in pandemic part 2.
You got it.
You don't need New York Times people apologizing now because they want us listening to them about measles.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you wanted us to listen about needles.
We lied to you before, but we're not lying
not this
anymore.
time.
Not this time.
Yeah. The vaccine companies that told us to parrot the same thing that we've been parroting for 5 years. Now that we need to promote, let's not even get into measles good or bad, but now that they want us to promote this other thing, it really is bad. Now you got to believe us. No. I'd rather just go to the people that got the last piece right. And RFK, I believe, was a part of that.
Yeah, he is. And so are a lot of the other people.
Yeah. Travis, you got anything on that?
Just sounds like an old story I heard when I was a kid called The Boy Who Called Wolf, or Who Cried Wolf. So,
Yeah.
Well, but
the
just
media
now,
who cried
this
vaccine.
This is directly to the media, our local media people. Again, you sound, if you're waiting for the New York Times to give you the signal that it's okay now to tell the truth, it's okay to acknowledge that some things got screwed up. If you're waiting for that signal from above, that's why you're irrelevant. That's why no one wants to listen to you. That's why we're gaining steam in a local environment.
They're not media. They are just, heads that sit there and talk anything that gets put in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, we got like 4 local news stations, and why do we need 4 local news stations to only talk about local news? I mean, if you're repeating the same stories and these are the only things that are important to people, according to my friends, well, we only want to talk about the local stuff because that's the only. I'm like, I'm a local person. I want to hear about things that overlap. And these stories, like, why shouldn't local doctors and local health organizations be held accountable for the things they've been telling us, even though information is changing today about what is good and bad?
Yeah,
I don't know. Seems like a pretty relevant story.
I mean, honestly, where I'm sitting, local is relevant, but my state's relevant and my country's relevant. So everything that happens in all of those things is probably pretty relevant to pretty much everybody.
Yeah, they should be. Let's listen a little bit. Glenn Greenwald is a brilliant guy, so let's listen a little bit of him.
Again, not him, but like the scientists and the Nobel laureates and the Dr. Fauci's of the world, because they must have credibility in the wake of all these online influencers or bad faith actors who she later refers to as follows. I think she means you and me and others like us. Stand by, let me find it. Some of the loudest proponents of the lab leak theory weren't just earnestly making inquiries, they were acting in terrible faith, using the debate over pandemic origins to attack legitimate, beneficial science, to inflame public opinion, to get attention. She goes on to say, these half-truths and strategic deceptions made it easier for people with the worst motives to appear trustworthy while discrediting important institutions where many earnestly labor in the public interest. My God, Glenn, this thing has it all. You take it.
All right, before we let him respond, that dragged out a little further than I thought. But again, it's like,
so they're trying to throw someone under the bus and say it wasn't them. It was just this one guy.
So
it's not one guy.
So my whole argument with the Associated Press, like I've been saying this for decades, because my wife watches and listens to a lot of the AP driven news. And the thing about AP is they only tell you the things they want you to pay attention to.
Sure.
It's like the moth that flies into a light. It's like, well, let's ignore these 10 things that are super important over here, but we're going to pay attention to Ukraine and Russia today because these other things we don't want.
Look over here while this is happening over here.
Yeah, it's a typical smoke and mirrors thing. So again, local news people taking your signals from the New York Times and these other virtue signalers I think it's just a wrong play.
Yeah.
If you're talking about local stuff, I think that's pretty I mean, local stuff is local stuff and do stuff with it. But we've got a lot of local news stories that they're not bird dogging either. We've been talking about Centerpoint, and there's no station that's taken that lead and running with it. Why is that? I'm relying on Facebook groups and independent people that aren't getting paid to do journalism, sending me information and trying to drum up my own information on it. I just don't understand it.
I wonder if they're afraid that if they say anything bad about Centerpoint, that Centerpoint will just walk up and cut their lines and they won't have any electricity.
Interesting.
Yeah, they won't be able to get it from anywhere else because it's a monopoly.
Anyway, so let's give Glenn a little time to respond here.
Glenn's a good guy.
He's a good dude.
I think you picked out the most important section, which is in that last one, it's sort of an attempt to acknowledge that the people questioning and then dissenting from the pronouncements of Dr. Fauci and that entire establishment he leads ended up being correct. But she still has to preserve the idea that the only trustworthy views are found in places like the New York Times, not in that dirty sewage of independent media. So she has to say, even though they were right, they kind of had bad motives and were trying to discredit institutions. Obviously, the people who discredited these institutions, these scientific institutions, are the people who led them. And it wasn't just that they got it wrong. It's that the whole thing, starting all the way back in 2020 with that Lancet letter, that was engineered by Peter Daszak at EcoHealth Alliance, who had a financial interest and a reputational interest in ensuring that nobody thought it was a lab leak, since he himself had money to work with Wuhan on the very research that likely caused the leak. They allowed that person to be the sort of objective source. They hid his key role. And that's the letter that said, anybody suggesting a lab leak is engaged in racist disinformation and conspiracy mongering against our Chinese colleagues. And they pretended to have a certainty about the origins of the COVID virus that they knew they didn't have, because internally, all these people, including some of the ones who signed that, were saying, actually, I think a lab leak is more likely. And Fauci convinced them all that, like, for the sake of science or something, they have to lie to the public. And that's exactly what they did. And even though I'm not going to sit here and say I knew from the very beginning that it was a lab leak, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an epidemiologist.
All right. I only want to say one more thing, and here's why this is important from a local level. Why we need people, local media, journalists, us, sitting here breaking these things down. If another pandemic comes or another outbreak of some sort that really is a public health concern, our local health department has taken signals and responded to the same things that the national
Exactly.
did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
There's been no acknowledgement of anything that went wrong. There's been no, hey, we got this messed up, we're going to fix it, and here's how we're going to do it better next time. There's none of that. The only thing we have different is RFK at the helm. And again, our local media is joining in with the national media, and they're not saying anything positive. They're just not saying anything really about it. But how about acknowledging how things got screwed up? Why is it three guys in a room here that have to be talking about? Acknowledge that it was screwed up. Do some journalism and help us fix it. I don't know.
When did journalism make the turn where it wasn't about seeking the truth? It was just about the money.
1972.
That far back?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Well, I think the nail in the coffin for that, and I'm hoping, I don't know who would be the one to undo that, but Obama signed there's an act that we have, a bill that we have,
that we can lie to the public.
Our government allows itself to propagandize to other countries because we're trying to do
like the moon landing or whatever.
we're trying to do we're trying to do we're trying to do different things. They call it soft power or whatever, but there's lots of different things that are going on. We're trying to manipulate different things. And that used to be illegal for them to send propaganda to the American people. Obama signed it to where they now can use the CIA and our intelligence can use the same warfare methods on us. And so you might be right as far as the original thing, but I know Obama basically opened up the door.
Yep.
So
if you really go back, there's a song that was fairly long played back in 1972. It was called "What About Me" by shucks, I can't remember who it was, but they say the newspapers will put you down. They never give you the whole story. That was one of them. And the other one was, you poisoned our sweet water, and the food you fed our children is the cause of their disease. This is in 1972, and everybody was saying that Quicksilver Messenger Service, the people that were putting it out, are just a bunch of hippies and don't believe what they're saying. But they were saying exactly the truth of what's going on right now.
Was Poison an Alice Cooper song?
What?
No.
No, was it a woman?
No.
Okay, because Anne Murray recorded it in 68.
Well, in 72, this one was by Quicksilver Messenger Service, and it's a long song. It's like 6 or...
Is that
This
it?
song, you can sing it. Sing along with us if you feel like it.
Because Moving Pictures sang a
There's no
song
words
called
if
What
you
About
don't
Me?
Go like this.
Yeah.
It's real easy. Could you turn my monitors up a little bit? Or something up a little bit? The words go like this. Uh-oh. Mazel, 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 mazel.
It might be the wrong
What
clip.
you gonna do about
Yeah.
it?
Well, this one, the words were right, but it didn't have the right clip. It said, "You poisoned my sweet water. You cut down my green trees.
Yeah.
The food you fed my children. What the
What
cause, of their disease?"
That's in
so that was this.
Quicksilver.
Yeah, what you just heard there was kind of a middle. It was a live rendition of it.
Yeah.
but I got it up on my screen. If
Yeah. So, and I always throw that out when people are saying, "Oh, this is something new." No, hell no. It was in 1972, and it mostly got ignored because, Quicksilver Messenger Service is a bunch of hippies. Well, they were a bunch of hippies. There's no doubt about that. But when I heard that, I said, "Holy shit." I heard it the first time in 1972 when it came out.
there were some smart hippies.
Yeah. And
Like,
I said, I haven't trusted the media since then.
There you go.
Some of us younger folks that didn't know to question,
Yeah, neither
question the
one of
media
you-
until later.
Neither one of you guys were born back then. And I was barely alive.
All right, so I think we've got that pretty well knocked out, that little segment. I want to get back into Travis talked about DOGE, and so there was a Vigilant Fox link that just came out right before we started the podcast. So this is all kind of breaking, and I want to thank Vigilant News again. But
Oh yeah,
so there's some good clips here that I'm going to share. These are pretty short, but
I chatted with you about this one earlier.
did you?
Did you not see on there? I said, "Where can I get me one of these?"
It's crazy. Is what you
It's
call
insane.
magic money computers at the Treasury.
Well,
So tell us about it, because I never heard of that until you brought that up.
okay, so
Okay, so
You may think that-
hang on. Ted Cruz is a sitting Senate member, right?
Right.
And he's having a conversation with Elon Musk, who's just been in DOGE about what, a month.
Yeah, a little longer, but yeah.
so Cruz has been around forever. Just for anybody that doesn't know, this is Ted Cruz. Because if you're just listening, this is Ted Cruz. He's a sitting member of the Senate, very active. He's been involved with a lot of things and been very outspoken. He's learning things today from Elon.
the government computers like all talk to each other. They synchronize. They add up what funds are going somewhere, and it's it's coherent. That there's and that the numbers, for example, that you're presented as a senator,
Yeah.
are actually the real numbers.
One would think.
One would think they're not.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, they're not totally wrong, but they're probably off by 5% or 10% in some cases. So I call a magic money computer any computer which can just make money out of thin air. That's magic money.
So how does that work?
It just issues payments.
And you said there's something like 11 of these computers at Treasury that are sending out trillions in payments?
They're mostly at Treasury. Some are, but there's some at HHS. Some there's one or two at State. There's some at DOD. I think we found now 14 magic money computers.
14, okay.
They just send money out of nothing.
So there's clip one. Okay.
I asked you earlier, where can I get one? Is it on Amazon or like where do I?
Yeah, unless we can all plug into one of those, I think everyone should agree that there shouldn't be any magic money computers in the government.
That's the way the government's worked for so long, though. We don't have the money. Who cares? Write a check.
For those of you who don't understand, whenever the government just sends out money, is you and I get to pay for it.
Yeah.
Not only do we get to pay for it, but our dollar is worth less.
Our eggs
And
cost more,
this is
everything
what
costs
this is
more.
what inflation is that they're writing checks that we're having to cash.
So I think just anything and everything that's affiliated with Trump, there's certain people who are just not going to be okay with it. I'm trying to tell the story that DOGE was originally a Clinton Gore thing. I just learned that this last week. Didn't know that the last time we met. Obama came back in, and Joe Biden was his point man to put out. It wasn't called DOGE then, but it was similar. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, technology has gotten so much better, and now you've got the head of tech support is Elon Musk, who
The head of U.S. tech support.
I mean, what if he's good at anything? It's going to be, putting things together like this. So, again, what are we really arguing about? I guess is the question.
What do you say?
Trump's
14?
bad.
14 magic money, just what they've found so far.
Oh, yeah.
And he hasn't gotten into all this stuff.
Probably, one in every corner of the Treasury Department.
Well, he's saying he thinks he can save up to $1 trillion, and people are like, "Oh, you won't be able to save that." It's like, here, let's put this into context. People are saying that the money that he saved so far, which is do you know the number offhand?
I'm
Travis?
going right there right now.
I know it's in the billions.
I'm
right?
going to the debt clock. Hang on. We are up to $216 billion.
Okay, put this in context. Do you care about what happened in North Carolina and all the people that got their lives destroyed in their house?
Oh, hell yeah.
Do you care about Maui and how Hawaii burned?
Mm-hmm.
Those people
Absolutely.
have gotten no money. Those people, there's some people still living on the ground, and there's been estimates that we could take $10 billion and rebuild both Hawaii and rebuild the parts of North Carolina that got hammered the way they did to better than they were before. Why are we spending money and wasting money and not caring about money when we can rebuild things in America that we should all care about?
They sent over $1 trillion overseas to people for Medicaid and Medicare.
Yeah.
Did you see that
People that didn't deserve it.
Did you see the Taliban? How much? $10 million a week, I think, or something.
Yeah.
40 million,
40 million
a week sent to, was it the Taliban?
It was the Taliban. It was the straight up
So we're
Taliban.
sending the Taliban $40 million a week, really?
Yeah.
Why? I just need to know why. Tell me why. Give me a good explanation.
Man.
And the fact that they have the nerve to say, well, the Congress passed it, so therefore Trump can't just put a dent to it. I'm like, no, that's not enough.
Yeah.
That's not going to do.
You brought up all that. Do you remember how long it took them to just get water to the Superdome during Katrina?
Oh, yeah,
it was.
I remember.
It was like 8 days or something. It was just to get water.
People were dying of thirst in the Super Zone. I in the Superdome. I was in the middle of that.
How so?
I took my dog down there to hunt dead people. He was a nice lab, good nose on him, and he found 3 or 4 dead people while we were there, and then he got a cut on his left hind leg, and I had to quit, take him out, and get him taken care of.
Make sure he didn't have an infection or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's a story we hadn't covered yet, Doc.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, they said, I was sleeping pretty well on a cruise ship.
Oh, is that where they put you
pulled
offshore?
the cruise ships. No, they didn't have them offshore. They were in the damn Mississippi River.
Well, yeah, we cruise out of there. That's an awesome port.
Uh-huh.
I love that space. Well, that's cool. That's a neat story.
I mean, to be fair, and I'm not knocking New Orleans in any way, shape, or form, but I don't know that any city should really be built under sea level that's right next to the sea. But
well, there's countries that are below sea level.
It was Venice.
There's a lot of places around the world.
Venice is.
And there's
I know.
There's
but
actually technology now that makes it much safer than what people want to understand. I mean, it's
doable. Look, they're still doing it down there. I mean,
even though they're saying the beaches are eroding, all the people that are telling us that are still buying beachfront property.
As you say that, I saw something. Somebody took a time lapse of, I think it was Google Maps or something. It showed a coastal, and it went from like 60 or 70 something all the way up to now, and it was exactly the same.
Yeah.
I was like, there you go.
Beachfront property is the same. That's amazing.
There's a wall in a port in Australia, and it's got a mark on it from like 1777, and it hasn't changed a bit. The seas haven't risen any. You can still see that mark from 1777.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is one of the things I've got a couple people. One guy that I've podcasted with before, who's a huge environmental guy, and he's big on solar and getting rid of fossil fuels, and he's big on climate and all that. And this is one of the big things. Like, he and I agreed probably on 80% of the things we talked about. And when we had the podcast, we had nuanced positions, and he listened to my point about, I don't want to be beholden to China for all the solar products, and they have 90% of everything that we need for solar.
Right.
Like, once we build manufacturing back up and we can create the chips and the solar panels and everything we need, and we can self-manage that, then I'm okay with having that conversation. Until then, we can't be beholden to China or any other country.
No.
So we just can't. So anyway, let's move on. I got another great clip from Elon. I guess you didn't find the clip that you wanted to share from Elon and Rogan about his life being threatened.
Oh,
we talked about it last time.
Yeah, no, I never even.
Okay, well, this is
I can look for it right now. If you
same
want.
podcast. Well, if it's not queued up right, this is a good one. Listen,
The real threat here is to the bureaucracy. So, like you probably saw, like, let's say like Trump as a threat to our democracy, which is ironic since he was elected with the majority of the popular vote. They started saying I was a threat to democracy. But if you just replace threat to democracy with threat to bureaucracy, it makes total sense.
Right.
So, the reality is that our elected officials have very little power relative to the bureaucracy until DOGE. So DOGE is a threat to the bureaucracy. It's the first threat to the bureaucracy. Normally the bureaucracy eats revolutions for breakfast. This is the first time that they're not, that the revolution might actually succeed, that we could restore power to the people instead of power to the bureaucracy.
Now, the size of it was when you guys first started investigating it, when you first get in, how much of it was shocking? Like just the size of it all?
Well, the size of it all, the small decisions result in multi-billion-dollar outcomes. So, we'd see, it was a case where we saw one person was getting $1.9 billion sent to their NGO, which basically got formed about a year ago and had no prior, no prior activity. So they just stand up an NGO. The whole NGO thing is a nightmare. And it's a misnomer because if you have a government-funded non-governmental organization, you're simply a government-funded organization. It's an oxymoron.
Right. It's a loophole.
Yes. It basically, the government-funded NGOs are a way to do things that would be illegal if they were the government, but are somehow made legal if it's sent to a so-called nonprofit. But these nonprofits are then used to people cash out these nonprofits.
Yeah.
They become very wealthy through nonprofits. They pay themselves enormous sums through these nonprofits.
Stacey Abrams.
That's
so. Where this kind of circles back to us is the center point conversation, and we do have several organizations that we're trying to do some journalism on and trying to figure out more about what's going on. One of them was AIM. Mm-hmm. It's not local, but it touches local. And that AIM is the Alliance of Immunization Managers. Now, you're a doctor of 50-plus years, Dr. White.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of the Alliance of Immunization Managers?
Association.
So
Association of Immunization.
It's association.
The website says association.
Okay. Same difference.
Yeah, sorry.
Anyway, I believe it's an NGO, and I wonder what they have in common. Like, do they care about our health? No. Are they funded? Who are they funded by?
Pfizer, Moderna,
Sure.
Sanofi, GSK, and Merck.
Okay.
It says right there on their website.
So when you and I are sitting here and we're having a conversation and we're talking about which vaccines are good, which vaccines are bad, and we can have spirited conversations. You as the doctor are going to have more chips on your side than I'm going to have just because you come with all the experience. All I'm coming with is what I'm reading and trying to learn and trying to better understand. And then you have an organization like this that basically flies under the radar, and they just keep pushing a narrative instead of helping
vaccines.
us. Yeah.
I mean, you can't watch television these days without seeing commercials for vaccines, without seeing commercials for extremely expensive things to treat, diseases that maybe occur 1 out of 2,000 people.
And why do you think that is?
Because there's money in it.
Okay, so I heard something, and it sounds very logical, and I've heard it from more than one source. What I heard was the pharmaceutical companies have no desire to sell that particular product. That 1 in 2,000, they're not trying to sell that product. What it is a transfer of money. And they're basically paying media to protect the other narratives. So basically, since pharma makes up 70% or whatever of media budget, of their advertising budgets, by giving them several $100 million to get some pharmaceutical that really nobody wants or buys. You got to listen to a 30-second thing going down the list of things that could fall off your body if you take it.
Yeah.
And it's only because they want to hand them money and preserve the other stuff. They want to keep the power. They don't want
keep the narrative.
They don't want a local media company being able to come out and talk about a vaccine negatively. So it's their way of controlling them.
Sure.
So, and let's not even talk about a particular vaccine. They just don't want to have any negative press. So they're basically buying them off in advance.
Well, yeah, and a lot of these advertisements for new and wonderful things, like for psoriasis, they say they'll make your psoriasis go away in 4 months. Well, let me tell you, I can make most people with psoriasis get better in 4 months with a drug that costs about $300 for that 4 months, that's already in generic form, and it's called I can't even remember that, but it's very inexpensive and it works really well. But oh no, you got to get this stuff that costs $12,000 a month, and your insurance is going to pay for it. A lot of them say that if you have commercial insurance, you only pay $5 a month out of your pocket for that.
And what that is also is a big racket.
Sure,
because they're making money. They're making money at the top and bottom of that.
Well, they're
and the middleman are making.
Yeah,
money.
They're pushing money to the insurance companies, and the insurance companies say, "Oh yeah, sure, we'll cover that."
That makes me think of, have either of you guys, due to the recent storms that we've had, have you had anybody come by saying that they'll go up and look at your roof, and if they find a couple things, they'll be able to get you a whole new roof at no cost to you and all that stuff? Have you ever had any one of those guys?
I kind of heard that.
Okay, well, so I had somebody that came by the house yesterday, I believe, and that was his whole thing. I'm like, no, man, don't worry about it, because I mean, they're going to make a lot of money, and they're going to turn this into your insurance company, and they may file the claim for you, but anyway, it just kind of sounds like the same kind of racket to me. Anyway,
yeah,
sure.
So I got one more clip here from Elon, again talking to Ted Cruz, and to bridge this, all I will say is Elon Musk is only going to be in the conversation for a short period of time. He says his exit goal was 18 months or whatever, and he wanted to be in and out. What everyone needs to pay attention to, or hopefully be insistent upon, is this idea going through to the next election, going through to every election hereafter, where we, the people, actually have an auditing software, and we all have always wanted to look under the hood.
Like, it should be a website.
It should be super audible. Well, DOGE has a website. They're talking about, they're showing where all the money is. Haven't brought that up, but they're showing everything that they're outlining, everything that's being done.
It's like doge.org or .net or
.gov, I think. There was a .gov.
Was it a .gov?
Yeah,
okay.
There was. I don't know if the one you're talking about is, but there was a .gov. Anyway, it's not super important. You can do a search for it. I'm sure it's easily found. I'm gonna play this one more clip, and if you can flip me over here, Travis.
I'll flip you off, yeah.
You can do that.
I was at your house in Austin. We were talking about it, and you said, you said, look, I don't want a job in Washington, and you said, all I want is the login for every computer. And I remember thinking at the time that sounded kind of weird. Like, I just didn't get it. And I have to say, what's interesting on this, if I would have thought, like, okay, how do you reform government? Like, sort of the traditional way to think about it is, okay, give me an org chart. Let me sit down with the people who are running agencies. And what you saw immediately is to understand what's really going on, get to the payment systems, get to the computers.
Yeah.
Why is getting to the computers so critical to understanding what's actually happening?
Well, the government is run by computers. So you've got essentially several hundred computers that effectively run the government. And if you want to know...
Did you know that, Ben?
No.
Yeah. So when somebody, even when the president issues an executive order, that's got to go through a whole bunch of people until ultimately it is implemented at a computer somewhere. And if you want to know what the situation is with the accounting, and you're trying to reconcile accounting and get rid of waste and fraud, you must be able to analyze the computer databases. Otherwise, you can't figure it out. Because all you're doing is asking a human, who will then ask another human, and finally usually ask some contractor, who will ask another contractor to do a query on the computer. Wow. That's how it actually works. So it's many layers deep. So the only way to reconcile the databases and get rid of waste and fraud is to actually look at the computers and see what's going on.
So
That's what I call. That's what when I sort of cryptically refer to reprogramming the matrix. You have to understand what's going on at the computers. You have to reconcile the computer databases in order to identify the waste and fraud.
Okay. I don't know. I don't need to add anything to that.
No, there's not much to that. That's pretty much that.
Can everybody just have a duh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, so we got a bunch of different stuff we're going to talk about today. While we're listening to clips, unless you guys have a natural segue into something, there are several different clips that I want to talk about. Roy, did you come with anything that you wanted to talk about today?
Not particularly, no.
Okay. So let me circle back around to something that we've talked. Well, actually, Travis just shared a clip with me, and it was something that we said we were going to try to share last time we were on.
So the first 5 seconds, I have no idea who this guy is, but then he's showing the clip.
It's Ruben, the Ruben Report.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I didn't see who it was. I was just trying to find
he's awesome. He's killing it on podcasting.
Yeah.
Well, we'll just listen to it.
I want to show you one more clip of Elon on Rogan because this was actually kind of chilling.
But I think if I fully destroy the corruption and the graft, they will kill me.
That's a
turn his
fucked up thing to live with.
Yes. So I'm like, damn it.
Well, listen, I really hope they don't kill you.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I strive to be alive.
Drive to be alive. I mean, that's chilling as hell. Like, you know, he's saying it with a smile and maybe he's being a little glib with it, but kind of not, right? Like, if he's able to upend the system that has been broken and corroded and worked against us and stolen from us and funded so many awful things and brought in horrible people and chopped kids' genitals off and all of those things, would they kill him? I don't know. Donald Trump had part of his ear shot off. And what do you do with that? Rogan's response is kind of right. Like oof. What do you do with that?
I tell you what, if he doesn't have a huge bunch of people around him watching
Safety and security.
His security ought to be like former SEALs, and they just follow him around and make sure nobody gets to him.
And I'm okay with our government paying for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, at least while he's working. At least while he's working for us. He's not getting paid, but the least we could do is not have him pay for his own security.
Yeah,
because he's definitely got a lot of people looking at him.
Sorry that seems so loud. There was that background music. It wasn't the voices.
Yeah,
it was the
background music was killing
I think
me.
the clip that I originally watched, thanks for finding that, Travis, was actually the Ruben thing, and it didn't have the Ruben thing was a somebody else did a clip of it. I don't think that was him that put the clip. So that was it looked like a reel of somebody else that put together. But anyway,
here's the first one I could find.
I highly recommend the Ruben Report. It's actually really good. It's one of the things I look to for signals.
Or the entire Rogan show with Elon. Exactly. Watch that thing.
Oh yeah. Okay, let me just try to figure out where we're going next here. We got a bunch of different things we could slide into. Methylene blue is something we've talked about.
I'm on that horse with you guys now. I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast.
All right.
Sure, you with the Emerald Piss group?
I've noticed that it's much more emerald if I'm dehydrated. The more water I drink, the less emerald it is.
There you go. How long have you been taking it?
This is probably about 2 weeks now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I started taking a multivitamin at the same time too, so I might feel that. Yeah, I don't know which I can attribute to which, or what I can attribute to which.
You guys can riff on something if you want. I'm trying to find kind of the next segue into. There's several different things I want to talk about. I was trying to find the natural next step. Well, let's just go into this. How about that? So there's a lot of we're talking about uniting around things, and people on both sides of the aisle kind of coming together on different topics. There's a really good clip. This lady self-identifies as a former, I think she still is a liberal Democrat. She calls herself that. And Bill Maher, love him or hate him. I kind of he's good sometimes, and other times I don't really like him. But this is a really good clip, and I think it kind of shows the energy that's going on at the national level. Part of the reason why Trump won, and it's because of stuff like this. But these two guys down here are kind of a hoot too.
Got a new show for y'all. Got a damn good show. This woman gives Bill Maher a lesson. Yeah. An education on tariffs. Left him speechless. Yeah.
Wondering what you think now. We're approaching 2 months in. I mean, you must have a feeling in your gut. Look me in the eye and tell me you don't. That this is really going badly, and I shouldn't have thrown my lot in with this team.
Oh, no, I feel the opposite.
All right. Tell me why.
I'm so sorry, Bill.
No, tell me why.
No, I feel so proud of, I mean, I was never a Republican or a conservative. I was a leftist, and I am still a leftist. I'm just a MAGA leftist now because...
That makes no sense.
That makes no sense.
She'll explain it. I've seen this clip.
When I look at what President Trump ran on and the agenda that he's enacting right now, he took a Republican Party that was built on social conservatism, foreign interventions and wars, and free trade and free markets. And he basically took an axe to all of those. During the campaign, he said, look, I mean, he's pretty pro-gay. That's pretty obvious. He appointed the highest-ranking out gay person, Scott Bessent, our Secretary of Treasury, which is incredible. And he sidelined the pro-life wing of his party.
He has changed the party, for sure.
Okay, so he believes abortion should be legal for 12 weeks.
But free trade,
on foreign intervention, he's anti-war. He's trying to bring to an end to all of these wars, okay?
By surrendering, but yes.
Okay.
That don't make no sense by surrendering. It's not our war. He's looking for a way to find peace to stop the war. We have nothing, to stop the killing. Like Ukraine. We surrendered. Yeah, it's to stop the killing of Ukrainians. Yeah, and Russians. Yeah, Ukraine is going to defeat Russia. Okay, whatever. We're surrendering.
That
didn't make any sense.
He's on the other side of another party that is quite pro-war and wants to keep the war going, right?
But let me just get to the
third point. And the third point is, and he's not free trade. He does not believe in free trade. He looked at our destroyed manufacturing base. He looked at the downwardly mobile working class. He looked at the fact that working class Americans can no longer afford the American dream. And he looked at why that was, which was there was a handshake agreement between both parties that we should somehow have free trade, which resulted in shipping 5 million good manufacturing jobs overseas to build up China and Mexico.
And some came here.
No, what they did was they brought in millions and millions of illegal migrants to compete with the jobs that remained here. And what Donald Trump said was, we have to stop selling out the working class. That agenda that he laid out, socially moderate, anti-war, and anti-free trade protectionist, that is a leftist
Sam, I will bring you in, I swear to God.
I don't know how you could beat that. She did it much better than we could do it.
And later on in that clip, she actually talks about the tariffs a little more. Later on in her, I've seen a different section of this, and she schools him on actually why Trump, kind of like what we talked about, I think it was the last episode, about he's just using it as a
negotiating tool.
Yeah, but what you call the deal of what do you call the something of the name of that, like the name of the something of the trade or something of the deal.
The art of the deal.
Art of the deal. There we go.
Yeah. His book.
He's just using it. He's using it as a bargaining chip.
Yeah.
Sure.
And the moment that the negotiating tool, the moment somebody does what we need him to do, then he'll lift
back off.
Just like with Canada.
And then the media will say, "Well, he's already
he's wishy-washy.
He already caved to Mexico."
Well, that's what. So that was the whole.
Mexico helped close the border.
Well, that was the whole thing about
reason.
Well, Canada, when he put the tariffs on Canada and then just a week later pulled them off, well, it was because they stopped surcharging for the electricity. You know what I mean? Like, there's reasons for this. He's not just like, oh, let's do it this week. Oh, well, it's a new week. Let's not anymore.
So again, the media is doing whatever it can do to label him because they're owned by the Uniparty. I mean, I don't even want to say it's owned by Democrats anymore because I think the Democratic Party is kind of lost. And that's why I'm sharing clips of people like this, and even a Joe Rogan and the Elon Musk, people are hating them now because he aligned with Trump. You listen to this lady; she just spelled out that it's a leftist agenda.
Yeah.
And how do you not remember when Democrats didn't want war. I mean, how can you forget that? Like all my life, I thought it was.
The parties have kind of flipped over the last 50 years, 40 years.
I don't know. I don't know if they flipped as much as people just got flipped. I don't know. I think it was all just it's a charade. They just want us confused, divided, arguing over abortion, arguing over this, that, and the other, all the while they have magic money computers. Mm-hmm. They're sending money to Ukraine and filtering it through their own pockets. I mean, to me, it's just a big distraction. And the DOGE, to me, is something that we can all look at. We can say, okay, we might not agree on where all the money goes, but at least we know where it's going.
Yeah.
And I feel a lot better about paying taxes if I know where all the money's going.
Yeah.
Because if my taxes are going to go up and you're going to say, well, this line item needs to move, like I say, okay, well, I can take a look at that.
Yeah.
And then if I don't like it, I can get somebody, I can try to elect somebody that's going to fight against it.
Sure.
I mean, otherwise, we don't know where it is. It just turns into the uniparty. Anything else on that? It's pretty good.
No.
That whole clip was pretty good. I would say.
I just was rolling in laughter on the lady saying that she was a MAGA liberal.
So there's a bunch of different things that most people probably are not seeing. Just to kind of circle back around, I've got an ad. The Vigilant Fox has done a really good job. So the Slavic government official admits COVID vaccines turn people into GMOs.
Yeah.
So another conspiracy theory that people basically were saying, these things aren't making people different than what they are. They absolutely are making people different.
Yep.
So what else we got here? I got a measles clip here from Tucker. Let's see what this one's about, since we haven't talked about it in a while. Measles. Uh-oh.
Should take credit for the decline in measles deaths in America. They should. But they should take credit in the following way. Between the year 1900, this is all on the CDC website, what I'm about to tell you, and the year 1960, 61, 62, the years before the first measles vaccine in America, 1963, the mortality rate for measles declined by over 98%. Yes, by over 98%. That is, you can just go pull up the mortality data on the CDC website. This is uncontroversial. It's just data, what I just said. Some people get emotional about it, but it's just data, what I just said.
Why would they get emotional?
Well, for the reasons we just discussed. That decline had nothing to do with vaccines. You know how I know? There was no measles vaccine.
Yeah, there were no vaccines.
That's how I know.
What caused that decline?
I think that in part it's the public health health authorities should take a lot of credit for that.
Nutrition, sanitation.
Better sanitation, clean water, getting sewage running out of the streets. Right. All of these things. Initiatives to make sure that there's natural light. Like, remember all the tenement buildings?
Yes.
All these initiatives, even basic things like quarantine. Oh, if you're sick, not the kind of forced kind of stay at home stuff that we're talking about. Just if you're sick, hey, maybe you should stay at home in bed kind of stuff. And so that decline, over 98%. You know how many people died in the few years, on average a year before there was the first measles vaccine in 1963, when pockets of this country were still like the developed world? Around 400 Americans a year died. That's 1 in 500,000 Americans died of measles in the years before they were vaccinated. Every death's a tragedy. And measles can still kill people just like any virus can in parts of the world that are really underdeveloped. Any virus can kill children, adults. And there were still pockets of America in the early 60s that were like that. But that declining rate of mortality, it was a trajectory that was ongoing, even when the measles vaccine was introduced in 63. So those 400 deaths, which have now gone down, how much of that is attributable to measles vaccine? How much of it is to the continued efforts of public health agencies, right? That could be debated forever. We don't need to. But the important point is this. Long way to answer your question is this. When you listen to public health authorities today, they will say to you, measles is what caused the decline. Measles vaccine is what caused the decline in mortality. They never talk about those other things that they did.
There you go. Doc had
Doc had his hand up on this.
There we go.
One of the things that came into that from the 1950s on is antibiotics. And the antibiotics don't work on the measles virus, but they do work when you get a secondary bacterial infection in there.
Which is what killed you when you got measles, the secondary infections.
Yeah, secondary infections. So he totally discounted that. And I mean, penicillin was introduced right at the end of the Second World War. And then beyond that, they started coming up with a lot of other good antibiotics. And in 1952, if I'm not mistaken, they came with an antibiotic that would cure tuberculosis. And all of a sudden, the tuberculosis sanatoriums that were all over the country, suddenly these people got well and they got out of the sanatorium. Being in pulmonary disease, we knew some of the old guys that stayed in the sanatoriums and took care of the people there. And they'd all closed down by the time that I got to being a pulmonary fellow. There, we might see 1 or 2 cases of tuberculosis per week in there, which, previously they'd have 200, 300, 400 people at the sanatorium. And the reason was that if they, quarantined these people in a place, they would not spread it outside to other people.
Well, I guess I'll let you, but you said he discounted antibiotics.
Yeah.
I don't think he didn't cover it.
He didn't even mention.
Well, he didn't mention, and I don't know. Maybe later in the talk with Tucker, he might have got to that. So I don't want to say he got something wrong. I guess what I drew from it was what we hear about vaccines is we must have measles vaccines because how the narrative is displayed in my mind's eye is the measles vaccine caused the steep decline in measles and all that.
It didn't.
Well, and so this is the nuanced part of the conversation. And when we're fighting,
let me tell you about this. Measles is one of the most contagious viral things that can happen. If you have measles and you're sitting in a room with 25 other people, within about a week or so, 90% of those people are going to have measles.
They used to have measles parties, right?
Yeah. No, that was
that chickenpox?
Chickenpox. Okay. They had chickenpox because chickenpox wasn't near as bad as measles. But let me tell you, I had measles when I was 5 years old, and they quarantined me in an outbuilding, and they came in about twice a day and fed me something, and I just stayed there. I didn't have a television or anything back then.
Well, they didn't invent televisions back then, did they?
Oh, yeah. Come on.
I'm kidding, Dr. Roy.
That was 1950.
I haven't jabbed you in a while.
That would have been 1954.
Yeah.
But I was sick. I mean, that's probably the most sick I've ever been, and I had COVID.
You don't know if they were treating you with vitamin A or anything, do you?
No, they weren't.
Okay.
Well, yeah, they were just feeding me well
because they didn't. Vitamin A maybe wasn't a known.
No, they didn't know that.
Time. Okay.
Yeah, but if as the food supply increased, people could get more vitamin A. They get to eat carrots. They get to eat green leaves and all of those sorts of things. And they're not all crammed together like they used to be back in the 1900s.
Yeah, when I think of like what we're trying to accomplish here from a truth-seeking piece of it, first of all, you gave a brilliant story about your own personal experience, and then you listened to this guy who clearly laid out something that I didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever I heard MMR, and me and Travis more recently made the decision to give our kids this thing, it's because we thought, well, measles is no longer around because the MMR has helped it. And I'm not saying it would have even changed my mind in that moment whether to do it or not. It's just the fact that you get lied to a little bit, and then something hits you in the head later with what happened with COVID-19 jabs. And now it's like, okay, so what else? It just causes you not to trust the rest of the stuff.
No. And everybody was talking about COVID-19 being as seriously spreadable as measles is. Measles, I mean, it's 90%.
Yeah.
If you're in a room for more than 30 minutes with somebody that has measles, you will get measles 90% of the time.
And maybe the 10% that didn't get it might have natural vitamin A levels that are higher or something, or whatever.
Or they
vitamin
might
D
have
or
had
something.
they might have had measles before.
Okay, yeah.
The nice thing about measles is once you have it, you are free of getting it again, because I tested myself maybe 3 or 4 years ago for anti-measles antibodies, and I blew the top off of it, and that was like 65 years ago.
I really do.
I had
I think we could take a measles deep dive, because there's a lot of videos out there that are saying people that have had measles have lower rates of certain cancers. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of stuff I think we could uncover. Again, we're talking
I
about
heard
whether to
that
vax
before, I said, "Yay!
Yeah.
I'm not going to die of pancreatic
It's
cancer."
not the cancer that's going to get me.
Yeah.
Travis, I know I left you behind 10 minutes ago. We had a couple things.
That's okay. Two things. One, I was pretty much going to mimic sort of what you were saying, where I don't think he was trying to discount antibiotics. I think he was just trying to show that the decline happened before the actual vaccine came out. So antibiotics were just part of the decline.
But he didn't mention that, and that's a good
That's a good thing to
that
add
he
on.
should have.
Yeah.
Way more important, 35 minutes ago, updated, previously classified documents related to the assassination of President JFK were released. The documents are now posted on the website of the U.S. National Archives and Records Administration.
Oh, wow. So maybe for next week, all the large language models will have a chance to download
I just
them.
want to know who fired from the knob there, the grassy knoll.
The grassy knoll.
Yeah, that was probably George Bush.
Well, the president who took over for him that's who all the people that I'm kind of paying attention to, they think it was Eisenhower.
No,
not Eisenhower, but Lyndon B. Johnson. LBJ. They believe he was at least partly behind.
Oh,
it.
he was crooked as anybody.
So we'll have to maybe get enough research done between now and next week that we can talk about JFK.
LBJ was terrible.
Yeah. So my brother-in-law passed me an article of somebody on Twitter, and we already covered that story. It was about the New York Times publishing an op-ed blasting scientists over government officials. So I don't want to share that one. Mm-mm. We already talked about that. So JFK has been released. The other thing that we have that, and this is conspiratorial. It seems like at least one time. It seems like at least once per show I got to bring in something that's kind of on the edge and probably will offend some people. I've got certain people in my life that, there's this whole Israel pro-con Israel, and apparently there's, and I don't know enough about it to really speak intelligently, but from what I understand, there's like two different major segments of Jewish people in the realm that I'm not super familiar with, and some of them, the people that are talking like this guy, believe they are not necessarily in it to be on our side, that they just use us to fight wars and do all the things that they want. So I had a clip here, and that might not be the greatest transition.
I should have worn my massage.
There's one up there. The anti-terror unit's hanging up there. I'm going to play this one, Travis, if you're ready to roll.
Work was Israel.
Quit washing your hands, pilot, and release the files! Release the files! Release the files!
Well, they did it.
No, not Epstein.
Do you want those Epstein files? Are we ever going to get these Epstein files? Is it the daddy
I haven't shared Russell
of
Brand
all
in a while.
conspiracy theories? Who are these people on the Epstein files? Are they just innocent partygoers that like a bit of fun, or are they the world's worst occultist paedophiles? Why is this information being so guarded? Does it amount to rape and statutory rape charges? Or do you think it's even darker than that? Why does Ian Carroll, who, let's face it, is the go-to voice nowadays on this subject, think that the Epstein files is the key and defining issue? You can have your UFO information. You can have your information on Pfizer and COVID and Building 7. You can have your information on JFK, but when it comes to Epstein, you can't get it. Now, he contests that that's as a result of Epstein being primarily a Mossad agent. Let me know in the comments and chat what you think about that. Certainly, Epstein's power is all-encompassing. The new leader of Canada appears to have peculiar connections to the case. Meet Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, pictured here alongside notorious child sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell. This wasn't just any gathering. It took place at Carney's sister-in-law's estate. Cornbury Park, a known hotspot for globalist elites. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Where do these globalist elites hang out? Cornbury Park. Is Mark Carney a client of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell? Well, I suppose, is it possible to meet with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein and not get tangled in some sort of sexual tryst? I certainly hope so, for Bill Gates' sake. Do you imagine that all elites ultimately meet up? I mean, didn't Trump's initial success come from saying, I know that they're corrupt because I use their corruption when campaigning against Hillary? So don't we expect and anticipate that elites commingle and interact? Let me know what you think in the comments and chat about that. Certainly, the prominent and dominant voice when it comes to this matter has become Ian Carroll, certainly since his appearance on Joe Rogan. Ian Carroll, come on the show. Here is Ian Carroll's already legendary appearance on Joe Rogan, where he says he believes the conspiracy theory that will never speak its name is the Epstein file.
Out of all the information that's getting disclosed, supposedly this administration, what do you have the least faith that we're going to come to
Epstein,
a conclusion?
for sure.
Epstein.
And I think it's because of Israel. I think
Really?
that because I mean, when you really dig into Epstein, his entire network was Israel. It was clearly like Ehud Barak was the ex-prime minister and the ex-head of Israeli intelligence. Leslie Wexner was one of the most powerful pro-Israeli philanthropists. The whole organization was Israel.
So
and
it
I'm
was
not saying it was all of Israel.
It was all an intelligence gathering, and
it was targeting Americans. It was targeting American officials and the American president.
Right.
And the CIA does have interest in those targets too. Elements in the CIA does. Certainly they had help from the CIA, and certainly they had help from these other organized crime and intelligence operations. But you don't, like, so for example, Dan Bongino, the new...
Shout out to Dan Bongino.
Was he deputy director of the FBI? He recently had this clip that went all around where he said on camera that he had a source that he trusted deeply. And he's an informed guy. He was at a Fox News interview, and the source told him that Epstein was working for an intelligence agency in the Middle East. And I don't know which one, but someone in the Middle East. And to be fair, we all already knew this. We already know who he worked for. At least I think so. But I'm looking at, okay, Dan, so if this giant group of Jewish billionaires is running a sex trafficking operation targeting American politicians and business people and stuff, you think they're working with an Arab or Muslim nation in the Middle East?
No.
Like, you think that Leslie Wexner is devoting his entire life to philanthropies on behalf of Israel, but then he's going to work for Saudi Arabia when he's doing this trafficking ring?
Right. But if someone says to him that they're all working for a country in the Middle East, knowing he knows what that means, but not specifying, doesn't he kind of have to repeat it that same way?
Well, he also has to repeat it the same way because he won't get the job if he says Israel. Because
Exactly.
Israel has
Right.
so much control over our government right now. And I'm not saying that all Jews are in on something. Clearly, internet. Thank
Clearly,
you.
internet.
And Joe is definitely not saying that.
Definitely not.
But the Israel's government is as vulnerable.
Okay, I've gone. So I only wanted to share that again because we're hearing all the stories. There's all the things about why the Epstein files haven't been released and all this good stuff. And I just feel it's important for people to understand the different things that are going on out there, because the war machine basically is clicking. Part of our, we're the pharmaceutical industrial complex, the military industrial complex. And now this theory is basically saying a lot of the stuff that our government is doing is controlled by billionaires outside of here. And we've always wondered, like, who's pulling the strings behind? Like, so for me, the big conspiracy theory is like, who might have initiated the JFK assassination? Who may have done all these different things over time? And what the Epstein files to me could uncover is that the puppeteers at the highest levels, like the people that are actually pulling the strings. That's why I feel it's important. Because, like, if we can finally uncover that, then we can quit being lied to at some level, maybe. Because otherwise,
I doubt it.
Well, I mean,
I'm kidding.
If Bongino's afraid to talk about Israel in that way, because every conversation that any politician has, at least from the right, is always very pro-Israel. So him saying this, like, I don't have a problem with Israel per se. I don't have a problem with Jewish people per se. There might be some bad elements in there. It's just like calling all Americans bad because we've got some bad ones. I mean, you don't want to do that. Doesn't matter where they're from. Anyway. So you didn't bring the goose and
No.
the geese.
But you brought the gander, apparently.
Yeah, the geese were flying
The geese were
over
flying
us.
by.
Some honkies just went over top of us there.
The honkers
Yeah.
just went by. All right, so what time have we got here? How long we been going?
Only an hour and a half.
Okay, so let's get into a little bit of. We're talking about a lot of different things. We talk. Whenever I'm talking to people online and trying to have conversations and trying to agree and disagree on certain things and come to an end, I think it's important. We talked about the Milgram experiment one or two times in the last several months. I think in the last year. You remember talking about it, don't you, Travis? Mm-hmm. Milgram, and we never really talked about what it was, but this clip I think is pretty relevant. And the reason why it's relevant to me is whenever we're trying to unite around key topics and make the country better and agree to disagree on some things or whatever. I think it's important to understand how easily people can be manipulated, and why Trump becoming kind of the bad guy, that everything that Trump stands for is now negative to half the country. Like if Trump stands for it, I'm going to have to be against it. Well, I think this is a good kind of experiment or showing how kind of susceptible our minds can be to authority figures and what we hear from media. So just tune in.
A decade earlier, psychologist Stanley Milgram had also looked at how we respond to authority. In order to understand how people were induced to obey unjust regimes and participate in atrocities such as the Holocaust, he set up an experiment. Volunteers were told they were taking part in scientific research to improve memory.
Would you open those and tell me which of you is which, please? Teacher. Learn.
Separated by a screen, the teacher would ask the learner questions in a word game and administer an electric shock when the answer was incorrect. He was told to increase the voltage with each wrong answer.
Cloud. Horse. Rock. House. Answer. Wrong. 150 volts. Answer. Horse.
Experiment, that's all. Get me out of here. Get me out of here, please.
Continue, please. Go right on.
I refuse to go on. Let me out.
Refuses to go on. The experiment requires you continue, teacher. Please continue.
Participants didn't know that the learner was really an actor and the so-called shocks harmless.
You're going to get a shock. 180 volts.
I can't stand the pain. Let me out of
You
here.
can't stand it. I'm not going to kill that man, eh? I mean, who's going to take the responsibility if anything happens to that gentleman? I'm responsible for anything that happens here. Continue, please. All right, next one. Slow. Walk, dance, truck, music.
Two-thirds of volunteers were prepared to administer a potentially fatal electric shock when encouraged to do so by what they perceived as a legitimate authority figure. In this case, a man in a white coat.
375 volts. I think something's happened to that fellow in there. I don't get no answer. He was hollering for less voltage. Can't you check in and see if he's all right, please?
Milgram's findings horrified America. They showed that decent American citizens were as capable of committing acts against their conscience as the Germans had been under the Nazis.
So the purpose of that is just, again, to figure out, it's important for us to break down these issues and to not get so trapped in ideology and this team versus that team or anti-Trump. I mean, we really are segmenting off our society in such ways that we've have extreme segments that will burn down Tesla buildings and whatever because somebody in the media says Elon Musk bad because he canceled this program. And what program does any of this touch? What program has been touched by anyone?
And even Elon has said it. He doesn't touch any program.
No.
He just sends his findings to someone else in the government who actually does do whatever, they want to do with the information that he provides them. He's just an information gatherer.
Yeah.
He doesn't flip the switch or delete the program or anything like that. He just gathers information.
Well, so the only reason I brought that up is because we have the media, we have a network of people that are saying Elon bad, and just like that, people go out, risk their life, risk the rest of their life, get put in jail. I mean, if you're trying to set fire to something and it explodes, you're risking your own life.
That guy did set himself on fire with.
So again,
it should not be allowed.
It's dangerous to have a media structure that has the power to take a gullible number of people and turn them on people. They weaponize the government, they weaponize the media, and they can turn it on whoever is threatening their power. Mm-hmm. And that's just not right. And so I need to bring that stuff up. When I see it and I hear it, I feel like we always have to come back to it. And it's why independent journalism to me is so important.
What year did they say he did that?
Milgram, I think that was 50s or 60s, wasn't it?
Well, it was $4 an hour. That's the only reason I was asking.
Yeah.
I was curious. I saw that it was $4 an hour is what they were giving people. So I was curious.
Yeah, it was probably the 60s.
All right. I'm hoping that we can get to something we can riff on here. Heard another talk from a gentleman named Eric Weinstein.
Who's that guy?
Never heard
We've
of
never
him.
talked. Yeah,
we talk about Brett, his brother Brett, a lot on Dark Horse. Eric is a physicist, and I don't know who has the bigger brain. Eric doesn't really focus on medical stuff. Obviously, Brett is an evolutionary biologist. But this particular talk happened at ARC, which is the alliance, Jordan Peterson's alliance that he did over in Europe. I'm trying to make sure I've got the time queued up here right. Hopefully it comes across right. Let's just listen to a few minutes of him. He's brilliant first and foremost, but he's a very liberal guy. Again, he's speaking to, I think, a more conservative audience, which is a Jordan Peterson crowd, and ARC is kind of a conservative consortium.
We're going to get to something big at the end, but we're starting from a little bit farther back than I thought, because it turns out I think that many of us don't know what's been going on to build up to this moment. I'm going to try to get through it relatively efficiently. I want to talk about emerging victorious. The culture wars has been very poorly understood. How many of you have ever been in an actual war, have seen action in an actual war? Very interesting.
Dr. Roy is raising his hand.
Than many of you imagine. I want to begin with going back to the Bible. I am your DEI speaker. As an atheist Jew progressive from the United States, I'm sort of slightly askew. But what I want to do is I want to go back to the Bible and Isaiah, which is at the end of Bob Dylan's famous All Along the Watchtower. And if you go to the King James Version, where it says, "Go and set a watchman and let him declare what he seeth," it is two riders that are approaching, as the song says. And what did they come with? They come with news of the fall of Babylon. We are in a situation in which the post-World War II order has fallen. And J.D. Vance has announced this. I personally think it's very important that the U.S. treat its friends in Europe very, very well, and it should be done in a fashion that lets people know that the U.S. will be there for the long haul. I am sure that that is in the cards, but we have to realize that we are waking up from a very long period of time, which I've called the Great Nap. Now the question is peace linked to gelding, to emasculation, to devitalization? And now there's a very famous quote spoken by Orson Welles as Harry Lime in The Third Man. And I'm sure many of you who know the film know the quote I'm thinking of immediately. In Italy, for 30 years under the Borgias, they had warfare, terror, murder, and bloodshed, but they produced Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and the Renaissance. And of course, he goes on to say that in Switzerland there were 500 years of brotherly love, and they came up with the cuckoo clock. Possible moral is that radical creativity, innovation, and vitality is inseparable from violence. Violence is not necessarily a bad thing. When it comes to masculine traits, people have a very hard time finding any masculine traits that aren't also feminine traits to say a positive thing about, except apparently we are able to peace standing up. I think that another positive trait of men is that they can control their violence, and that violence can be used for protection, and that violence can be used for creativity. But we are about to go back into an era which is perhaps a very high vitality. I want to talk about a very difficult subject, and that is that the concept of actual physical emasculation has a rich history going well into the 20th century, and in fact into the 21st century. One of the reasons that we've been deranged by the trans discussion is that the trans discussion is about devitalization. And it is a recurrent theme that authoritarian regimes attack the reproductive rights of their citizens. And whether this is China, in which the last eunuch died in the 90s, rather astounding, Whether we have in Italy the last castrato, who was actually recorded, and you can listen to him sing, not a very good castrato, I might add, or Sanjay Gandhi, who triggered, in part, the reaction in India. Do we have Indians in the audience? Very disappointing. I would say to them, Sampurna Kranti ab narahai bhavi ityas hamara hai. Total revolution is now the slogan. That is how angry people were and how violent they became because of sterilization camps that were practiced in the 1970s. And I have this quote from Elon Musk, because I think what you have to assume is that when you go to war, one of the great terrors is that you will be disfigured. The sun also rises is a famous example. Bouncing Bettys were discussed in Vietnam. And the fact is that these people very much came for our children. This is not cute, it's not funny, it's a terrible tragedy, and I don't think that I overspeak when I call it a reproductive holocaust. I'm not going to read the quote because I don't think I can get through it personally. This child was with my son in high school, and I can tell you that the schools are infested with an orientation that is against the family, against the natural order, and against society itself.
Okay.
What was the quote? Do you know?
Dr. Roy, do you know what
I saw it up there for just a split second.
No, I couldn't see it from this distance.
I highly recommend this whole clip. It's only 17 minutes in total, and I would play it all the way through. The Make America Healthy Again, part of the reason why Trump was elected, part of the reason why I believe Robert F. Kennedy is heading the ship, is we've talked about the trans issue and why it became such a central theme, I think, and they were inserting it in onto almost every conversation and keeping us divided, keeping us angry. And I think if you just look at it as a political tool or a weapon to stoke people up, that's one thing. As he describes it here, it's a repetitive thing that's happened throughout history. And part of the way you destroy a civilization is by going after the kids, and demasculinized societies are the weakest of societies and the ones that are most easily toppled. And so I didn't want to go all the way through this because it's a pretty long clip, but I felt like it's kind of a good circle back around to us having the conversation about why school, education is important. Me and Travis talk about that a lot. We talk about different things that are important to our kids. And, both of my boys have grown up in a realm where this was becoming more and more normal, where it was just something we had to talk about. It's like forced down your throat. And I'm going to say it. I have nothing against a trans person. I have a lot of gay friends. I have nothing against gay people. I have nothing against it. What I have a problem with, though, is if it actually is something that's a strategy that's being used against us. And that feels much more like what it is to me.
This kind of makes me think of that quote, and I had to look it up because I couldn't remember it entirely. It's tangentially related, not necessarily directly related, but the hard times create strong men men create good times times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. And I think it kind of falls within.
It definitely falls in that.
Within that a little bit. I love that quote. G. Michael Hopp.
Well, I actually, what did we get to on that? Now that I got to this other clip, I was not supposed to start until 3:55. So let me, I don't know where we got to. Anyway, I'll go past that one because I feel like it was a little deep and dark for this evening. I'll come back with more of that on the next podcast. I do have one more thing, and if you guys have anything else you want to talk about, we can. But I have one more clip that I think we can probably have much more conversation on. Let me find it here.
So what you're talking about there, is there
demasculinization?
Well, yeah, but is that something is that a type of warfare that's going on right now? Is that what he's trying to say?
Yeah,
or
I think so. And one of the ways of demasculating men is their food. Mm-hmm. The amount of soy that's taken in by young men these days is enormous compared to what it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. And soy does decrease the amount of testosterone produced in the body. And I mean, I saw this today. There was a young man in Walmart, and he was at the same place that I was looking for the same sorts of things, and he had on a T-shirt, and you could tell that he had breasts, and he was not, trying to show that he was a trans or anything like that. He just had significant, I mean, not huge, not double D's or anything, but his nipples were sticking out, and it looked like he had small breasts underneath those. And I think it was because he was a soy boy.
Was he a bigger guy or
no? He was skinny. He was skinnier than me, and. But he was a student at the University of Evansville. I could tell from the shirt he was wearing. And, being a physician, I see things like that and can immediately figure out what they are. And I didn't say anything to him or anything. I just shrugged my shoulders and continued on. But the amount of soy in all sorts of ways are decreasing the ability of our men to produce testosterone and ultimately to produce semen. And that's, the amount of sperm in the semen is approximately 1/10 of what it was 40 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not
I mean,
something
we're
to hear.
still getting people pregnant. Don't get me wrong.
Just not at the
on
rate.
that.
Not at the rate.
Not at the rate.
Well, earlier today, it's funny enough that we're talking about this. I was seeing that we are on a depopulation segment, kind
Yeah.
of. So the global
Trend.
population trend. There you go. But a quote on that I was reading, and I swear I thought it was Elon, but I could be wrong. Was that's not a bad thing? Like, we need to naturally, and not necessarily force people to not to only have one child or whatever, but it wouldn't be bad for the Earth's population to decline somewhat.
No, that's more Bill Gates. Elon.
Bill Gates wants to do it by force.
Elon believes we are we're depopulating.
Look at
at a best.
Elon. He's got 13 kids.
Yeah, he thinks we're depopulating too much, that we're going to have civilization collapse.
Yeah.
Well, but to an extent, okay, maybe it wasn't Elon, but why do you think Elon wants to go to Mars? It's because we're going to outgrow this planet. Like, he wants a second.
That's one of the solutions.
But I mean, so he truly does think that we're overpopulating. I mean, he may think that there's civilization collapsing or what have you, but he may not have been the one that said it. But it makes total sense that we can't continue to grow
I only want to correct you minorly, because there are a lot of people that believe what you believe and saying what you're saying. They're definitely not Elon.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't.
He has firmly said that he believes the populations are upside down a lot. He believes China, they're going in a different direction that's going to cause a major problem in the future. He believes America is in a trend that's going to cause a major problem in the future. I mean, whether we agree with that or not, that is definitely not his.
Okay, maybe it wasn't him, but ultimately it was talking about how at one time civilizations in wars, whoever had the most men were going to win, pretty much.
Yeah.
But we're not in. That's not the way it is anymore. You don't have to have more men to necessarily. You can do it by technology. You can do it by other means.
Sure.
And
but
so
you do need more men to have a strong society, though. You need strong men to have a strong society. Via what you just said with strong men.
Well,
I didn't say if they were strong or weak. I'm just saying we don't need the population, the number of them, really.
The number of children has gone way down over the past 20 or 40 years. You guys can probably look at all the Catholic schools that have closed down in this city because there simply aren't enough children to have that. I'm familiar with two of them that have shut their schools down completely. St. Boniface and Sacred Heart on the west side, they no longer have schools there. Yes, there are plenty of Catholic schools around, but not to the extent that there were in the 60s and 70s, simply because they're not having more kids.
Well, I'm wondering if fewer Catholics too. That's definitely not helpful.
So Grok says that in 1950, the average child to mother ratio was about 5 children. Now it's at 2.2.
Yeah.
Well, I would have thought it'd been under 2 myself.
That was in 21.
Is that
So, I mean,
is that worldwide or would it
global total fertility rate? Yes, that's global.
Yeah.
Was the average in 1950 was 5. Now it is 2.2.
See?
Yeah, so I mean,
the old man's wrong once in a while, or right in it once.
Oh yeah, you're definitely right on that.
Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, I think we could have all kinds of conversations on this. My concern about when we talk about good versus bad of populations going up or down, I think there's arguments on both sides to be had. I guess my problem when you hear the Bill Gates types of the world who have their fingers in vaccines, and he has said more than once that using vaccines is a good way to control the population. You know, it just is not things that I don't want the Bill Gates types.
But I said very first thing was that this was not by force or by any type of policing. This is just the direction that it's naturally going.
But we don't know that though. I mean, because if
this says the U.S. population is currently growing.
If Dr. Roy, but I mean, what Dr.
That's from all the illegal aliens that are coming in. You know.
You mean how many people or how many families are growing, or just our population is growing? Look at average number.
To read more.
Average number of children for U.S. citizens in 1950 to 2024 or 25.
Yeah.
So immigration is part of that because it says declining fertility rates, aging population, but then immigration is a driver. So they are talking actual census population.
Well, some of the people that are arguing so pro and staunch for immigration as a whole, not just illegal immigration, but they're catering to that is they believe we don't have enough people to do the work that needs to get done. I mean, that's one of the arguments that the illegal. Go ahead.
Sorry, this says in a zero immigration scenario, the population would currently be declining.
Yeah,
resulting in approximately 107 million fewer people in 2100 than in 2022.
Well, I mean, I think it's an important conversation to have at a high level because we need to figure out whether having a upward population or a downward population is important on how we're building society. And again, I just don't want the wrong people having their thumb on the scale either way. And I don't need the Bill Gates types telling me, well, we need fewer people, so we're just going to do stuff when you're not looking. I mean, that's not a conversation. That's a megalomaniac.
Sure.
doing
I'm not. You know, there shouldn't be firing squads or vaccine deaths or anything like that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that eventually we can outgrow this planet resource wise. We can have too many people per.
Well, you need to go argue with Elon and Grok on that one because he firmly disagrees with you.
Yeah.
He would. I mean, that would be an interesting conversation to say. I want to argue with Elon about population growth and collapse, and is it good or bad? I mean, I think it's an important conversation. I'm not armed enough to really talk about it.
Yeah, I guess I'm not really either. I'm just saying that there can be too many people here. That's all I'm saying. There can eventually be too many people on this planet.
Well, okay.
That's all I'm saying. Like, you don't think that's
it's
possible?
It's absolutely possible. I think there's a sweet spot probably somewhere, and I haven't listened to the right person telling me why the sweet spot is important and how is it different from one country to the next. And
well, you could talk global or you could talk U.S.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like, do we have a right number? Or I mean, we're way below China and we're way below India. We're our numbers.
Yeah, but look at the life that a lot of that when you have that many people in a smaller country is.
Oh, I'm not saying I like it. I'm not saying I want to be overpopulated. Like I'm not fighting for it. That's what I'm telling you. I said I think there is a sweet spot, and I don't know if we're in it or not. I mean, I don't know. I think with technology, you're right. With AI, with fewer jobs being needed, there's probably less of a need for actual bodies to do work. I mean, we could have that conversation. I think that's a whole podcast probably we could prep for and do. You got anything else on that, Doc?
Nope.
All right, I got one more clip that I want to share, and we might get out of here, crack out a little earlier tonight. This is more of a positive, uplifting thing, and I feel like everything that's going on with the country, the media definitely doesn't share very many positive stories about the country and why we should be proud of it and what we should be striving for in the world. And this is another. This is Konstantin Kisin, I think is his name. He's got a podcast called Trigonometry, and he and another guy interview all kinds of highly influential people. He's super funny, super smart guy. I believe he's Russian Ukrainian or maybe pure Ukrainian, and I just really like how he kind of defends our country and what we have going on for us that we need to be really trying to protect.
The success whose fruit we enjoy was not created by a more advanced foreign civilization. It was achieved by our grandparents and their grandparents before them. A better metaphor would be the one Philippa used when she opened this conference, thereby ruining my speech. It's King Theoden from Lord of the Rings who sits on his throne, paralyzed. Bound to his seat by lethargy and passivity, he's kept there by a weaselly servant called Grima Wormtongue, who whispers dispiriting, cowardly lies in his ear. Too many people on our screens, our newspapers, in our schools and colleges have been modern-day Grima Wormtongues, who pour their cowardly lies in our ears and those of our children. If Grima was alive today, he'd have his own column in The Guardian. We need to admit something very unpleasant. We have been lied to. For decades, people went on TV and told you that your history is all bad and your country is plagued by prejudice and intolerance. I have debated these people many times, and I always ask them the same question. If you were a woman or an ethnic minority or someone who was spirit, gender, or whatever, where would you rather live than the West? And none of them ever answer, because we all know the answer. We are being accused of performing terribly on the very things we lead the world in. A healthy sense of your own self-worth, a self-confidence. These are not conservative values or liberal values. Those are the values of every successful group of people in history. Decline is a choice. And the good news is this: most people don't want managed decline. Most people don't want to be browbeaten and chastised for their history. Most people do not want their children to be poorer than them. And recent election results around the world bear that out. Like him or loathe him, the reason millions of people admire Elon Musk is not his charismatic speeches, stunning good looks, and ill-advised hand gestures. They admire him because he builds big things, and in doing so reminds us that we are meant to reach for the stars. A big part of the reason we are here, 4,000 of us, is that an obscure Canadian clinical psychologist became such a unique cultural phenomenon that he can help to pull us together like this. And how did Jordan Peterson get so big? How did he get so big? He reminded us of something that human beings have known for millennia, that if you adopt the attitude that honesty is better than lies, that responsibility is better than blame, and that strength is better than weakness, your life will get better. And now he sells out sports arenas around the world. We are a civilization that is waiting to be inspired. So let's stop listening to the people who want us to fail. Let's ignore the counsel of our enemies. Let's open our eyes and see the world as it is. Our culture is special. Our civilization is special. We have built the most free and prosperous societies in the history of humanity, and we are going to keep them that way.
Highly recommend the entire speech.
That's awesome.
Very uplifting.
Yeah.
He's an incredible dude. Very, very smart. Also, he's a comedian, so he's a stand-up comedian. So he's thrown in a bunch of different stuff. But this whole thing, we could watch the whole thing to the end, and it's about another 5 minutes. But so I'm not going to do that. The point for me on this particular was, again, just I want the country to be better than it's ever been. I've never really liked the Make America Great Again thing, because I felt like that kind of sells us a little bit short, because we've been lied to a lot of things. I want to make it better than it's ever been, so I don't even know what the slogan for that would be. Make America. That's too long.
Making it great again, though. Have you ever seen the show Newsroom?
No, I have not.
You see,
I have.
That Jeff Daniels has that really good feel about where we are ranked in this, that, and the other. And so, I mean, I think
I've seen that clip.
So that kind of, I think, kind of stems to the Make America Great Again part, is that we once were better than we currently are, and he wants to get us back there.
Yeah.
pretty
Well,
much.
and I know a lot of people just argue that the people that argue that it's this, that it's racist, that it's built on bad things. This was the stem versus, it's like,
I just have to say, how does he know that we're the most prosperous civilization? I mean, look at the pyramids, man. Who knows this pyramid? The civilizations have been wiped out before us.
Based on the history that we know,
there are a lot more.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding a little bit.
Way beyond the pyramids.
Oh yeah. We're going to dig into. We could do the Ancient Aliens podcast.
It's
with
the
Dr. Race.
what do they call us? The Naka or who were the gods that came down from the stars?
Anunnaki.
Anunnaki. There we go. Yeah, the Anunnaki.
The Emerald Tablet.
Yeah.
Is it coincidental that we have emerald piss?
I don't know. Have you watched Have you ever seen the Y Files? That's a podcast you need to, or a vlogcast where you need to watch. It's not political. It's all conspiracy. It talks about these things that we're talking about right now.
Oh my God!
Jokingly.
What's the name of it?
The Y, WHY, the Y Files.
And
I can't think of that guy's name, but it's I watch it on YouTube. And there's a lot of great stuff that he talks about. It's pretty good stuff. And UFOs and things like he talks about. A lot of that stuff that you know about.
I'm 38-0 on conspiracy theories.
You're looking for some new ones. You're looking for some new ones to adopt?
Yeah.
Well, that's why I brought the Epstein file conspiracy theory, because I felt that's something to kind of lean into and try to figure out a little bit more on.
Well, and Kennedy too.
Well, yeah,
I'm excited about the JFK file.
Yeah, so let's agree. Let's agree to do our own individual research and take on what gets released.
So what I was reading was there's so far been 2,800 files released. I don't know that I can go through all of them, but I'm hoping that somebody throws them all into like Grok or something, so that we can get a summation.
I think if they're online, if they're online, Grok is already on them.
Well, okay.
Yeah. All you have to do is send Grok to the site and say,
it'll have to
give me the
it'll have to digest it.
Well, I mean, and I think you can ask it questions if it doesn't feel quite right, and keep digging on it. I think we could both do our own independent thing and come back with some interesting things.
I'm curious. I did just a little snippet just as I was reading. They were talking about how Oswald he was actually killed. Well, they needed a confession out of him so that the public would think that he really did it, and then he was killed before apparently he really could.
Yeah,
anyway.
And why was he killed? The guy who killed him was a gangster from Chicago.
Jack Rubenstein.
Yeah.
Well, apparently Oswald got a whole. It was either I think it was the Russian embassy before he actually did the kill. I don't. These were just little tidbits that I was kind of reading after I told you that they dropped. So I'm curious where this is going to take.
Yeah, I wish it would have dropped a little earlier because we could have pivoted.
Well, I actually got to park one time in the garage where Oswald was practicing his rifleship.
Oh yeah.
Before, it's in downtown New Orleans, and my attorney was taking me to lunch in New Orleans, and he said, this garage here was where Oswald used to fire and get his marksmanship good, and I was holy shit,
Yeah, well, you're in on you've watched JFK, but the whole thing, the picture of him with the gun, that's apparently the weapon was not a real picture.
No,
it was that was a rendition of something. They took his head and put it on a different body with a gun.
It was AI picture before AI.
Well, I mean,
it was photoshopped before Photoshop.
Photoshop. Yeah.
So that'll be really fun. Let's try to dig into that. Let's do a segment on that.
Well, and he killed a police officer before he was taken into custody.
Really?
Yeah, there was a police officer. He may have not killed him, but he shot him for sure.
Are you creating new conspiracy theories that don't?
No, this is true.
Really?
I mean, that was in there was a New Orleans police officer that thought he saw him, and he said, "Hey, stop!" and he shot him.
I didn't. I mean, I didn't. I completely lost that. Well, we'll have to. I'll have to do when we.
Yeah, you're wanting to look too, aren't you?
I know. I'm like, man, I want to get into it. We need to stop early so I can go do some playing on this.
Yeah.
Go down a rabbit hole. I'll talk to you in a week. Your wife will see you in a few days.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate it. So we're not going to be here next week. In spite of my wife's condition, we are heading to spring break next week.
Oh, okay. Didn't know that.
So we are going to let her recover a little bit more on the beach next week. So following week we'll be in unless
she needs her vitamin D.
Yeah, she does. Oh wait, sorry.
Get her in. Get out. Get out of here with that. Not with that.
Not with a broken or hip or pelvis. Broken pelvis. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've tried it, and it's not happening.
Whoa.
She's a little gun shy right now. Let me just put it that way. Anyway, gentlemen, I always appreciate it. It's fun. I think it was a great episode. Hopefully everyone enjoyed it. Any questions that we answered some questions last week. We didn't really get anything I felt like fit with what I wanted to talk about this week, but please keep sending those in. Also, to let everyone know, we have a new Rumble channel. So I'm going to put this video on 2 different Rumble channels. I'm going to put it on the old one. I might do a small clip and put it on the old one just in case someone comes there for the first time to get them to the new channel. We built up a pretty good following, but the branding wasn't aligned on between YouTube and Spotify and the different podcast platforms. So finally got everything in line with United Divided. So if you search any of those, please do that. We didn't talk about ivermectin for the last couple of weeks. Dr. Roy has ivermectin. He's got plenty of that available.
Ooh, I got tons of it.
Yeah, so if you
want to have some ivermectin on hand, just in case you get COVID, or if you decide you've got long COVID or something like that, give us a call. It's $30 for 10 tablets, and that's enough for 2 people to treat themselves with COVID.
Which is still going around, and I imagine it's not going away anytime real soon. So hit either me or Dr. Roy up on Twitter, or any of the ways that people get a hold of me now. You can easily do that. Until next time, a couple weeks from now.
All right.
And already looking forward to it. Me and Travis, by the way, are playing euchre tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
We're going to go have some fun. We haven't got to hang out in that capacity.
Not in a long time. It's been a while.
So looking forward to that, and I appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Have a good night.
See you later,
Love you all.
people.
Thanks.
Take care.